David Rowe. This we've been talking about this plane for a while. We're finally doing it.
Well, it's a good one to talk about because when it comes to air superiority, there's not many things in the world that match up well with this aircraft. It's a fifth generation fighter. What is it? Fourth generation stealth. It's got all the bells and whistles. Twin engine, single seat, and just really, really stealthy. So this is not something that you want to not see on your radar because he's going to see you before they see it.
Yeah, and I read 35,000 pounds of thrust in each engine.
That is correct. Those Pratt and Whitneys produce a lot of power, but on the other end, this is a very large aircraft. It's not. It's larger than the F-35, which is its compatriot. They fly together some, but it's more maneuverable. It can do things that nobody else can do. And when you see this thing fly and turn, which I saw it recently at Virginia Beach over the summer. It came flying over my head and just turned like a 90-degree angle, went straight up and started popping flares over the ocean. I mean, you're just like chill bumps are coming up your skin because it's just amazing to see.
Dave Gorman.
I gotta tell you, I remember distinctly the first time I ever saw one of these things fly, and it was up at Air Show in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was so excited. That was the main reason I drove 4 hours in the morning to go see a show, and then drove back that same
Right.
evening. I cannot explain the amount of excitement and anticipation, and then just total joy and awe and wonder at seeing this plane move the way it did for a civilian crowd. I can't imagine what it would be like to try to face one down in combat, but this thing was twisting and turning and diving and floating and uh, flat spinning. And I remember watching it flat spin down towards us and thinking, that's way too many. That's too many. That's too many. That's, oh my God, look at that. And I could not believe what I was watching. And I enjoy watching it every time I've seen one fly since. Incredible plane.
Yeah, this one's had a long development. Had a pretty exciting competition with the YF-23 uh, aircraft, YF-22 versus the YF-23. There was a lot of competition there trying to get these aircraft developed. And there's some people who think the 23 was the better airplane, but I think the 22 was a better system put together, was more advanced, and it ultimately won out in that competition to be the next advanced tactical fighter. And with its longevity, it's proven to be just that. It's a tough opponent.
Yeah, and you're looking at. I mean, this plane absolutely amazes me with a unit cost of $143 million.
Well, the other thing is that cost is one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of these available to us. They started building these in 1996, and they only built them through 2011, and they only built a total of 195 aircraft. Not even 200 of them exist. Eight of them were test aircraft, and 187 were production. And from some of the things I was reading, some of those early block aircraft, they're already trying to retire them because they've become maintenance issues. They're costing money to fly. And, there's just not a lot of these airplanes around. It's good that we've got as many as we do, but we certainly could have done a whole lot better had we had some an extra 200 of them built today.
Let's hold for a second. Are you there? Dave Gorman's having some problems.
Oh, is he?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm
okay, go
I
ahead.
no, I was just I think it is amazing, Dave. Like you say, there weren't even 200 of these things built, but That means there are not a ton of pilots who've worked their way through this program either. It's not huge and widespread, but it is
No.
a premier. It's a premier assignment to be an F-22 pilot, and I've never seen an F-22 pilot who is humble, and for good reason. That plane does things, and they are in total control, and it looks like a video game. I mean, it's amazing how the amount of control that they have, and the touch, and the ability, and just the raw power. Seeing this thing take off like a rocket, and Derrick, what did you say was the horsepower per engine?
The thrust was 35,000
Thrust.
pounds per engine.
Yeah, I
Per
mean,
engine.
per engine. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous to see what it did, and or what it can do. One of my great thrills, the last air show I was able to attend with my dad was in 2016. And that was the first and only time that he ever saw an F-22. And that wowed him like no other. Um, he'd always wanted to see one. They've been flying at shows for a few years, and he finally got to see one. And I was thrilled to be there with him because it was, for him, literally a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah, and the tail on this aircraft, David Rowe, uh, would you say that's much different than most fighters with a sort of the V tail?
Well, it is, but that goes back to its stealth roots, where there are no 90-degree angles on this aircraft anywhere. If you look at it, everything has an angle to it. So any kind of radar that hits it is going to either be absorbed or bounce off in an opposite direction. It won't be returned directly to the radar source. And those canted tail planes are in exactly that. So if radar waves hit it, they're going to bounce down or up, depending on the orientation of the aircraft. Everything about this aircraft is to defeat radar. It makes it terribly unstable because of the shapes, but that computer that's inside that aircraft is amazing. I was listening to a pilot talk about it, and basically he was saying the F-22 is easier to fly than your Cessna 172 is,
Oh wow!
because the computer handles literally everything.
I must now fly one.
Well, it's a very limited class. You're going to have to work hard to get into
that's
it.
not going to happen. Go ahead.
But the way the computer system is done, the engineers have designed it so that you literally can't outfly the plane. The plane is always ahead of you. When you want to turn hard, it will turn hard with you, but it won't depart flight. It won't allow you to stall the aircraft out. It will keep the airplane flying. It's just the pilot that I was listening to was saying you could just get in there and crank the stick around and around and around in a circle, and the plane just flies itself through all that. It thinks for you. The engineering is just amazing on this, and those canted tailplanes are just part of it. They work with the aircraft to limit the G load on it. When the plane lands, if you've ever watched it land, the rudders turn inboard to help take the weight off of the wings and slow the aircraft down. I mean, it's super complicated the way this plane works. It's just amazing, the fly-by-wire system and how it manages things for the pilot and allows them to focus on the battle, the whatever the job is. Are they looking for an aircraft? Are they dropping some ordnance somewhere? They can focus on that, and the plane sort of flies itself. It's pretty amazing engineering that the Lockheed Martin folks put together in this.
Absolutely, and I know Julien, you probably have some thoughts to come in here with the F-22 Raptor.
Yeah, so the thrust on this machine was just exponential. It had a high development cost and is highly specialized role. And yeah, I'm sorry to hear that there was only 195 of these produced. And I don't know if that sounds like they're not going to make any more. And that's too bad because it was for such an aircraft that performed so well. They should have made a few more. And at least I could get a couple for my collection too, you know? Um, the Raptor fleet was based on different areas across the nation, and the joint bases in Langley Fustis in Virginia and in Alaska. And there are still a couple of museums that you can go and visit. The F-22, and they're on display at the National Museum of the United States and the Air Force Dayton in Ohio. And so I think in my next trip down to the United States, I might just go down there and check it out.
How did I miss that, Dave Gorman? I've been there 3 times and I have missed this aircraft at Dayton.
But I don't know, because it's in a place of honor, and it kind of feels like you walk into that hangar and it's right there in front of you, and
And I was probably running for the Memphis Belle, but anyway.
you might very well have been. I mean, that you really have to plan out your visit. That's for sure. And
You
it's, if
do.
you only have one day, it's not going to be enough. But you gotta kind of go through the list of what you want to see and figure out what hangar. And I just try to do it over 2 days, and even then, I walk out feeling like I missed something. But the F-22, that was the first time I ever saw one. Was the one of the test versions, one of the early versions that they had on display up there. And I mean, it looks fast just sitting there. It's so space agey and futuristic, and it's the design is over 20 years old, and
Oh,
here we are.
Julian, have you ever been to the museum, the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio?
No, I haven't
We're
gone.
we're
I
gonna
haven't
we're
done.
gonna have to get him down here, guys. We're going to have to get him down to
Yeah,
Dayton.
there
Yes,
you go.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, while you're there, you can see the YF-23 and the 22. They're both at the museum, so you can compare and contrast. What we got versus what we could have had. So that's always an interesting thing to look at. But yeah, that museum, it's overwhelming the amount of stuff to look at in there. You could spend a week in there, and there's
Yes.
probably something that you would miss. That's how much stuff is in there. Memorabilia, uniforms, medals, suits, helmets, models. It's amazing.
The scroll through of the, I'm not to get off subject here, but the scroll through of the different artwork
Yes.
there in the hangar. But back to the F-22, David Rowe.
Well, one of the main features that they wanted in this aircraft when it was being designed was something that they called super cruise. They basically wanted an aircraft that could fly, above Mach 1 without being an afterburner. And those big, giant 35,000 pound of force engines were capable of doing this. And that's one of the features that this aircraft has, is it can cruise above Mach 1 easily. It doesn't have to go to afterburner. It doesn't have to use up all that extra fuel to get there. So it's super fast in that respect. I believe the top speed is about Mach 2.2. So
Wow.
it's a very fast aircraft. And that super cruise ability is very, very important. Another factor that they wanted was the stealth. And in order to carry weapons on this aircraft and be stealthy, they have to be inside the aircraft. So most of the time when you see this, you don't see weapons on the outside. There's no pylons with bombs or, Sparrow missiles, air-to-air missiles or anything like that. They are all held internally in bays. I believe the center bay is like 17 feet long. So you can put some very large weapons inside that bay. And the cool part is, in order to stay stealthy, the doors on these weapons bays open within 1 second. So they pop open, it ejects the missile or the bombs, whatever it is, and then it almost instantly closes back up to maintain its stealthy profile. So it's really, really impressive when you see it go by and these weapons bays pop open and then they pop closed during the air show, because that's how this aircraft operates. Is it hides the weapons. It does have hard points on the wings. It can carry external fuel and bombs and missiles externally. but that reduces its stealthiness. The one thing I didn't know is that they can eject those pylons from the wings while in flight. So they can carry them out and dispense them and then eject everything off of the wings and go back into the full stealthy mode, which I thought was, brilliant engineering again.
Dave Gorman.
Well, I actually saw Julien raise his hand there a moment with a comment. If you want to go, Julien, I'll
Yeah,
follow up when you're
Julien, go
done.
ahead.
Well, thank you so much. So just to put something in perspective here, if you're traveling at 2.2 Mach, how long will it take for you to get across the United States? Do you have any idea?
Oh, please tell us.
Oh, yeah, it would just take under an hour. Can you imagine going from Los Angeles to New York just in time um, for the dinner or something or barbecue? Just less than an hour.
And
So
that's
just to
and
put that in
that's
perspective,
that's
you could cross the continent in just in under an hour in one of these aircraft.
and that's what, 3 time changes?
Yeah, 3 time zones. Exactly. You got it.
That would be fun. I
Yeah.
say let's do it.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I did not know. I was doing a little bit of research. And Dave, going back to what you said about the hard points, I didn't realize that was a thing. And I've seen this now at 10 or 15 different air shows. I've never seen one loaded up with external spores at all. So
No.
that would be a real cool thing to see, and I'll have to look around for that. But the other thing is, I didn't know that at one point they contemplated a two-seat variant. There was a time where there was a thought for the F-22B, I think is what it was going to be called.
Yes. Yeah, there's actually a couple of variants. The Navy was actually looking at having a version of the F-22. They even considered making a bomber version of it.
Wow.
So, what was it? The FB-22, an early 2000s supersonic stealth regional bomber for the Air Force. And then the other one was the X-44 Manta, or multi-axis no-tail aircraft. Was a planned experimental aircraft based on enhanced thrust vectoring controls. There's something we haven't talked about. And so yes, there were a few variations that were contemplated, but they never proceeded with it because they literally cut off production early. With the 195 aircraft, they never really had the time or the construction time to make some of these variants that would have been a very interesting thing to see.
It most definitely would have been. And again, thinking what that would have looked like. And then thinking about how can I get a ride and take one of those 1 hour rides across the country. Julia was hyping there. That would be a blast.
That would be.
Well, and
Yeah,
that
but I think the aircraft was just designed as a one-seater, so maybe they'll have to put the hatchback open for you and you can sit in the back somewhere.
If I
the
could volunteer, I would. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that is actually one of the issues with this aircraft is because there is no two-seat version, it's very hard to train for it. They have to use dissimilar aircraft. They use the T-38 Talon. They use the F-16, and coming online, was it the T-7 Hawk, which is their new trainer. That one will be about as close as you can get to the F-22 training wise, because they've built it to be similar to the F-22 in the cockpit. So yeah, if you're training in this aircraft, when you climb into it, that's your first time flying it because you don't get a co-pilot to show you the ropes. You have to know it before you get in it.
So is there a simulator for that?
Oh, I'm sure there's simulators for it. Matter of fact, I've seen there's is it a Gulfstream or some aircraft that they've put the cockpit in it, and so you're flying a big giant airplane with the cockpit set up so that you can get some training on what it's going to look and feel like when you're out there flying.
Gotcha.
But now let's go back to the thrust vectoring, which was another feature of this aircraft. We've been talking about how maneuverable it is, how quickly it can turn and change direction. And it just does things in the sky that you just went, wait a minute, that's not possible. Well, it's because it has thrust vectoring nozzles on the back end. And they're not your typical round nozzles, they're rectangular. They're a V shape on top and bottom. All of that is to suppress the heat signature, to help it be more stealthy again. That's a big thing for this aircraft. It reduces that heat coming out the back, but because of that thrust vectoring, that aircraft can change direction almost instantly.
Wow.
There's very, very few aircraft that can change direction as quickly as this one does, which makes it can do some maneuvers. The Cobra, if any, if you're familiar with that, where it just pops up in the sky and slows down and then goes again. Those are the type of things that this aircraft does. It's a walk in the park. It's so easy for this plane with the thrust vectoring. And if you look at it, it's about 43 feet wide. It's got gigantic wing surface, so highly, highly maneuverable jet.
David, is there a combat history with the F-22?
Well, yes, there sure is. It's not great, but there is some history to it. Let's see my notes right here. The first thing that it really did in about 2007, it started escorting Russian bombers along the Alaskan coastline. So it would hop up and the Tu-95s and Tu-160 bombers. That was when it first, operational use back in about 2007. It's been flown out of Okinawa, Japan since 2007. Let's see, it's done. It's been Iraq and Syria. It's dropped ordnance over there on a couple of the missions that they've had there. But probably the most famous thing it's known for shooting down are the Chinese balloons that flew through the United States in 2023.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I remember that.
That's its first confirmed air-to-air kill, was when it shot down a Chinese balloon over the coast of was it South Carolina, I believe?
Yeah, that's one cool video.
And then there's also after that, it shot down two more, I believe, near Alaska. There was a couple more that came in, and it shot those down as well. So it's not had any air-to-air kills except for balloons, but it has dropped quite a bit of ordnance because technically it's not a fighter bomber, but it is very capable as a fighter bomber. It's very well versed in that.
Well, and I think sometimes it's important to understand too that the absence of a detailed history doesn't mean that it's not successful at its mission. The absence might be as a result of its success as
absolutely.
As the ability to counter any type of enemy action.
Well, and if you look, there are knockoff versions of this aircraft out there. The Chinese are building aircraft that look very similar to this aircraft. So, if it works well, people will copy it, and it is being copied.
Seen it time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things that's interesting about this F-22 is it is banned from export. There are no other countries that operate the F-22 Raptor. Only the United States does.
I thought that was interesting because there was some talk about some other Japan and I think Israel considered them, but as you mentioned earlier, it's a very expensive aircraft and beyond what they could feel comfortable with deploying. It was, pretty expensive to adopt. And a lot of those countries ended up going with F-35s, right?
That is correct. Again, the F-22 is a little bit of an old jet. It was designed in the 90s, built through the 2010s. And 2011 was the last one that was built. So it's getting a little long in the tooth. As far as development goes. So the F-35 is new. It's got all the latest electronics. So it's if you're wanting the newest and the best, then the F-35 is your choice. Plus the fact that we don't have enough F-22s to export. You only build 195 of these things. You can't pass them around to everybody. You got to keep them for yourself.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And as we jump into closing thoughts of the F-22 Raptor, closing thoughts, Julien Martinson.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of me. The F-22 was really a symbol of innovation and breaking the boundaries. And the next generation that want to move into careers in supersonic flight, there's lots of opportunities. Supersonic is not going away. And there are plenty of programs in Canada and in the United States that offer supersonic aircraft engineering programs, both to be a pilot and to be the designer of these types of aircraft. And I'm actually going to be writing a book on supersonic and outer space travel that'll be coming out in the spring. So you can keep your eyes open for that as well.
Definitely. Dave Gorman, final thoughts?
Well, I was a little saddened to see that there is an expected retirement age for this aircraft coming up in the next 10 or 15 years. Then I thought, well, maybe the Thunderbirds will take it on. So you heard it here first, folks. We'll keep our eyes open for a six-ship F-22 formation in the red, white, and blue, perhaps one day. An absolute favorite plane, one that I stop and watch every time I see one. I can't help it. I'm in awe. And I can't wait to feel that the thrust just pulsing through my body as it flies over and pulls some G's. And I just think, what an incredible view. Seeing video from the cockpit of what they're doing overhead of an air show and seeing the pilot view for everything. It's a thrill. And it takes me back to my first air show when I was 9 years old. This plane does all the things that are cool. And I love seeing them.
Well, and I wish I had some intro music or something for this, but I know for a fact that trivia with David Rowe's coming right up.
You guessed correctly. I do have something here that I was not aware of, so this is new to me. Have you ever heard of Rapid Raptor?
No.
I think that was a comic book in the late 70s. Is that correct?
No, trust me, I'm a comic book guy, and that is not correct.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. Anyway, Rapid Raptor. Okay, so we've all heard of aircraft on standby, pilots sitting in the ready room, the jet engines running, ready to react to whatever's going on in a moment's notice. Well, this is similar to that. Rapid Raptor was a USAF development where they would take 2 to 4 F-22s and 1 C-17 and use it as a logistics plane. And they would take that group and move them to a hot zone within 24 hours so that they could operate with just the 4 Raptors and a C-17 and be combat ready within 24 hours anywhere around the world. So it was a fast response to a hotspot. If you've got a flare up in a small country somewhere, you can just take these Raptors and run them over, and you're ready to defend your airspace, and whatever is going on there. You can provide assets rapidly. 24 hours. That's pretty quick to move some military assets across the world. So it was a concept they called agile combat employment. So it's for small conflicts, but at the same time, moving 4 Raptors across the world and having them combat ready, that's a pretty impressive thing to see.
I like it. And so David Rowe. So what do you have for us on the aerofoil end for the F-22 Raptor? I know there's some Raptors over there.
Well, there is definitely a very, very cool video on my Aerofoil YouTube channel from the NATO Air Show back in the summer this year. Like I said, this Raptor came roaring over my head. I'm standing on the beach. He goes out over the ocean. He pulls up and just starts flipping and turning. He's popping flares. And all of a sudden he stops and he flies away and goes around behind us and disappears. And we're all looking at each other like, what happened? Something wasn't right. Well, they finished the air show. And the next thing you know, here he comes again. And he does the entire show over. It's a different F-22 because he had a maintenance issue,
Right.
but he completed the entire air show. And so I've got all that on video. So go to my YouTube channel and look up the F-22 and you will see, so, he's popping flares, which you don't get to see very often. It was over the ocean. And B, if you want to see some maneuvers that, F-16s and F-15s don't do, well, he was doing them. It was impressive. So check that out on Airfile.
Definitely. And Julien, here in a few days, me and you are going to sit down for the podcast here and talk about your new book that you currently have out right now.
Well, that's correct. I just issued the new book that was based on my TED Talk, Mediocrity is Killing Your Superpower. And it's a book designed for a wider audience, based on examples from the aviation industry, for role models striving for excellence in a personal capacity as well as in a group capacity. But of course, life doesn't always go the way you want. And so you have to plan for the inevitable. Challenges do come up. And so you have to come up with a recourse action and a plan to recover. And so this book explains all that. And so in our next episode, we'll go into more detail about the whole book and what's it all about and what are the reasons why I delivered this to the aviation industry.
All right. And Dave Gorman, what do you got going on social media, bud? I know things have been pretty quiet around the aviation part of it, but you got some other stuff going on.
A little quiet. Well, adding things of interest, music and things like that are always fun for me too. So just uploaded a few music videos recently, some local bands here. But I was thinking I may go back to some of my videos and find some heritage flight videos because the F-22, we didn't mention this, is a pretty common participant in U.S. Air Force heritage flights where they have planes for World War II, maybe a P-51 Mustang, sometimes a F-86 Sabre from Korea, maybe I've seen it with an F-100 one time from Vietnam, A-10s, and quite often an F-22. And it's unbelievable the difference in size between a P-51 and a F-22. So I'll find a good video, Derrick, and we'll put that up on our Facebook so people can check that out or just search it. It's really crazy. It's amazing. But yeah, I'm still cataloging some videos from the summer that I hope to get uploaded soon and put out there, just adding whatever we can.
Yeah, and you can find all of the History of Aviation podcast social media in the description below. But I want to talk a minute about our Patreon page.
Yeah, what if that's not enough? What if you need more, Derrick? Is there something else out there where people can find a better way to connect, get even closer to the action?
Absolutely. For $8 a month, you can gain access to exclusive benefits, including behind the scenes content, ability to submit fan requests, member shout outs, opportunity to join our live audience for recordings, as well as our private community.
Now, I understand that David has a feature of David's favorite aviation themed T-shirts that we're going to be launching on Patreon soon. Is that correct?
Oh boy, yeah, I've got a few T-shirts that we can see.
All right. Well, if the people demand it, that can be
arranged. That can be arranged.
Well, yeah, and Shay can chime in here too. And what this allows us to do is it helps with the production cost of this. It also helps with this does cost money to do a podcast. It does cost money, And that helps with that, and that also helps us keep it going. We really want to keep it going, right, Shay?
We definitely want to keep it going. Hey guys, excellent podcast today so far. I love it. Patreon's super duper important for many reasons. And in order to be able to keep this awesome sauce podcast going, we need the support of the excellent viewers and listeners. It's like the old PBS, but brought to you by viewers like you. We can't do this without folks that listen and watch and then spread the word. Like, that is, to me, I think that is one of the best ways to get information out nowadays, especially in today's world, is like word of mouth. And what we have on our Patreon is going to fuel that and give you the opportunity to say, hey, I listened to the podcast and it was great, but also on the Patreon, which is only $8 a month, it's like that's what a Starbucks coffee, you know what I mean? So we get way more things through the Patreon. So I would highly encourage folks to go and do that because it will be worth it.
Yeah, and the bloopers alone are worth $8 a month.
Yeah.
I mean,
bloopers. What are you talking about? There's no bloopers.
You get like $20 worth of bloopers for $8. I mean, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
I was thinking of joining to keep the bloopers out of circulation. So this changes things.
It does, but it's
blackmail.
And you can also make a one-time PayPal donation to keep things going here at the podcast. And all those links are in the description below. I would go over those links right now, but they're really long. So you can find all those in the description box below to join in on that.
Fantastic. Hope you guys do. We'd love to connect more with you, and we sure appreciate all the folks listening. Derrick, you had some stats recently that shows how what our reach has been like lately, right?
57,013.
That's incredible. So let's keep pushing that. That's great. We appreciate you guys listening.
And we're educating people, and I don't want anybody to take offense to this, but our short videos are aimed to educate people. It's not just somebody dancing in front of a TikTok screen. So we actually have educational material.
I do have a video of me dancing in front of a TikTok. That's in a special section of the Patreon.
We can do that.
That's in the OnlyFans section.
We'll get that link out to you. Maybe a tip or something. We'll work that out.
I like it. I sure did enjoy it, guys.
Awesome plane. Can't wait to see one again.
Yes. Soon, I hope.
So
maybe we all need to meet up in Dayton sometime and go check that one out. Julien, we'll schedule that with you. That would be a blast to hang out
for
with
sure,
you.
dude.
See it all.
Yeah, Julien, I'm telling you, man, you would absolutely be. I've been there. I can't tell you how many times over my lifetime and walked by the F-22 for some strange reason, but I've been there probably maybe 15 times in my lifetime. The Memphis Belle's there. That's one of the holy grails, you guys,
They got it all.
Not far from Shay. So yeah.
And I have an international airport here in Bangor. And I'm actually kind of curious from Dayton. I'm not quite sure where Dayton is, but
Dayton, Ohio, Shay, where you're from.
I know. I get that part of it, but like Cleveland is like about 800 miles from me. I'm curious to know how far that is from Julien.
Well, all those questions can be answered with just a click of a button, but on my fingertips, I don't have that right now.
Exactly, but you only get that information if you donate $8 to our Patreon.
Well, that's the way to do it, folks.
Exactly,
and Julien, with the exchange, what is that Canadian? $8 American, and
that's going to be at least probably $11.85.
All right, there you go.
I think what's going to have to happen is Julien's going to have to call Doc and Marty to get there.
We'll get him there one way or another.
We'll go up there and get him if we have to.
There you go. That's the way. Well, I'm not that far from the United States. It's just Toronto, so it's just over the border.
We like to pick on you though.
Yeah, that's okay.
glad to have you and get your perspective, and can't wait to see your upcoming publications. It sounds like you're always working on some cool stuff.
I know, and it's just so fascinating to see the future trends of aviation and where the industry is going, and supersonic outer space travel. I'm literally writing these books, and as I'm typing, I am literally falling off my chair because the future is so bright and so sensational, and there's so many opportunities out there. Um, I just, I'm just really excited for the next generation that are coming in because they will be able to shape the future of aviation and take the industry to levels that we were not able to because they have all the technology at their fingertips. They will be able to follow the role models of the past, use the technology of today, and build a better aviation industry in the future. So I'm really excited for the next generation coming in, and I just can't stop talking about it, and I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Absolutely. For David Rowe, Dave Gorman, Julien Martinson, Shay Jones producing, I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for listening to the History of Aviation podcast.